production teams on summer delay.
Now we're here.
Delay. Woo! Lisa Shea Munt's in the house today. We're going to talk about the government, sales, spending money, how to be smart. Dre's got stuff about Starbucks. Big day, big day. Summer behind the scenes, though. Oh, big fail for the production team.
That was
Off
great
on
stuff.
point. Off that we had, and listen, behind the scenes, we have a lot of prep. Today was a lot of prep for the pre-show, and they just fell asleep at the wheel. Fell asleep at the wheel. Hi.
Nice kitchen. I've never seen your kitchen in your background.
Yeah, I'm on, what is it? I'm on quarantine in my office. Had some COVID conspirators running my office, so we're locked down. I refuse to go in there for another week. So I'm hanging out in my living room kitchen while I'm cleaning out COVID from my office, but I tested negative, so I'm all clean, thank God.
I got my second vaccine.
What's that?
I got my second vaccine on Monday.
Thank goodness, man. It is such a touchy subject. Who knows? It's like, I could just say this factually. If you have the vaccine, the symptoms and the process are a million times better. And if you don't, and you get sick, you're probably going to the hospital. So do even if the government's putting a chip in your arm, I'll just say they can follow you if they want to anyway. Like they don't need the chip to follow you. Just for whatever it's worth. That's just free advice to start the show. My name is Jack Siney, the host of the GovCast. I'm throwing it over to Stevie B.
Steve B, the dean. Yes, my wife is a nurse, and I got a text today. She said we are all effed, so please go out there and get your vaccine.
Oh, there's the new emoji.
Aww.
Well, so Andrea, really excited to hear that you got that, and be safe.
My arm yesterday, I'm wearing a long sleeve, or I would show you. My arm, my tricep looked like a man's tricep, and it still kind of does. It's huge.
That's swollen.
It's super swollen, yeah.
Come on, show the guns. Flex up the guns.
Well, I can't. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt.
Tell the audience who you are. For those the two people, you've been gone for a long time. Who are you? Tell the people.
I've been busy. But I will be here for the foreseeable future. Andrea, good to see everybody again. Almost the end of the month. Almost time for fall.
Almost time for you to disappear. See, thank goodness we end the month on Tuesday, so you'll be here Wednesday. See, start tomorrow.
Wednesday.
Next week. I know next week it'll be good. Not the end of the month.
Following Wednesday, I'm not too sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, why is that? Do you want to tell the audience?
Well, I'm just saying something might come up.
Oh, I thought maybe you'll just be getting back from a big party you're going to.
Oh, I will. I'll be getting back from Scottsdale Tuesday night.
Why? Why are you going there?
My bachelorette party.
There you go. There you go. Well, welcome to the show. We're actually going to talk about the government today for a change, and so super excited to have Lisa Shea Mundt. Will be here in just a little bit. But I think, Dre, one of the things you were looking up is you saw some post about Starbucks. You wanted to mix that into the show. So
yes. So yesterday, I think every woman, every girl in America is excited because Starbucks has pumpkin spice latte back. So it's weird to drink it and think about it in Florida because it's so darn hot. But it's back. But we did hear, what is this called?
Something better. Twitter is fired up about something better.
I have to try it. Yeah. It's called an apple crisp macchiato. So it has, what is it? I don't know, some kind of blonde drink, oat milk. And
it's to die for. You got to get it.
Did you already have one?
No.
Oh, that was good.
It looks good.
It's
caramelized spiced apple drizzle. Actually, I think that sounds really good. I have to try it.
Do it again. I don't want to leave the audience hanging. Do it again. Give them the whole description.
Yep.
It's got, so you order it with espresso, steamed milk, and caramelized spiced apple drizzle.
Ooh, what's it called?
Hold on. Apple crisp macchiato.
Apple crisp macchiato is going to try to overtake pumpkin spice. Starbucks doing big things. How much did the government spend on Starbucks last year, Dre?
8.62 million.
That's a big lie. It was some other number. What was the other number you just said?
What? I thought that was it. Hold on, pull it back up.
$2.26 million.
Hold on a second.
Making stuff up. Just forget it.
Is that on coffee or just Starbucks coffee? That's what I need to know.
I know, you think there's a whole bunch of versions of that.
So you gotta just give me a second, because if we're looking at just directly when they went to Starbucks, it's technically 3.94, but it was the 8.62 when they're buying through other vendors and they're putting it in a big order.
Yeah, so Starbucks grabbing almost $10 million from the government. Big stuff. Listen, and so one other quick pre-show item is if you were here last week, you saw we did a webinar, super rare topic for us. We were talking about, hey, how do you win a higher percentage of bids and RFPs? Now, we encourage folks not to start there. The bid and RFP process can be daunting. The win rate can be relatively low. It's like baseball, 1 out of 3, you're doing great. Mm-hmm. And so we just went through a series of steps, kind of insider tips and tricks to help you win a higher percentage of bids and RFPs if you have to kind of submit one, and just some things to help you out in that world. Just highly suggest you go watch that. We rarely talk about bids and RFPs. Those of you who follow us know. And so what we did is during the year, we like today, we'll have guests on that kind of know what happens on the inside. And so we kind of aggregated all of that feedback, put it in the webinar. Steve, how can they get the replay of that?
Yeah, actually just go to our website, govsalesuniversity.com, and you'll actually see a webinar section. So just look for the 10-step process to win more bids. Or you can type in that /10 steps in there. But just go to our website, click on the webinar, and then the drop down. We'll see 10 steps to win bids. The feedback's been phenomenal. I know we always talk about winning deals in days. The bids and RFPs are
that
not
never happens.
deals.
If you ask people like the Sherpa, it never happens.
Well, no, you can, Jack. Like I've had agencies give me their P card, their purchasing card, the same day I talked to them and signed them up. Like same day. It's been crazy. But the bids and RFPs, they do take a little bit longer. So we want to help people if they have to go that journey, because sometimes it's inevitable and the agency is going to go put it out there for a solicitation. So we help people win those, and we even offered some coaching. So hopefully some people will watch that and then take us up on our offer. We're running through the end of the week here. To Friday.
Listen, I got to just get this off my chest, little insider industry information. Listen, there's a lot in this world of, in the government world, a lot of folks who spent time there and then go private or retire, and they come out and they really like make all their money by saying, oh, everything in the government is so hard. You could never do it without me. And so listen, part of that's true. Part of that is true. The government is complex, like any industry as you get to know it. But I'm just going to tell you, for those of you who don't know, our company tracks all the government spending, federal, state, and local. Literally, factually, if anyone's wondering, you can call Dre, we'll set you up. Like literally, agencies spend money same day. They issue a requirement in the morning and buy it in the evening. We track it. We see it. It's not some like pithy thought like most consultants are like, we heard one day 18 years ago, this happened like yesterday. So just factually, so you can either believe some of the stream you'll see in LinkedIn and whatever, or we can give you the facts. So if you're ever in doubt, we talk from factual data, not our opinion, not something from 38 years ago. We tell you what's happening now in the industry. So with 100% certainty, I just want to let you know, you can win a government deal next week or maybe before Friday. So if you're interested in that, ping us. We'll set you up with Dre and her team, or CVB. If you need more information, he'll start right away with GSU, right, and get you out of the mark. So just a little behind the scenes venting. All right, I'm done with that. Okay, I'm going to move on. Anything else before we bring on Lisa? Anything else? Anything else? Do we got anything?
I think it's a perfect segue.
Perfect.
So yeah, let's talk about somebody much smarter about the government than all of us. Lisa Shea Mundt, we want to welcome you to the show from the Pulse of GovCon.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining the show.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Where are you joining us from? The DC area, right?
Yeah, outside in the suburbs.
That's great. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us. We act like we know something about the government, but you actually do. So can you tell folks a little bit about your background and the Pulse of GovCon?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Lisa Shea Mundt. I'm the co-founder of the Pulse of GovCon. We're an advisory firm, and our mission is all about empowerment of government contractors. It's funny, Jack, I heard in your intro when you were talking about some of these other people out there that really try to gatekeep information about how to work with the government. That's not our MO. We're all about education. We're all about teach a man to fish. And that's what our services really empower. Personally, I have been in government contracting the last 11 years, and I've worked in a variety of capacities, including proposal management, proposal writing. That's really my first love, business development, and capture management.
That's so good. Can you, I want to talk about the Pulse and tell folks, because your service is very unique, has great reviews, and want to deep dive and share that with our audience. I think it would be great. But before we do that, as you heard in our intro, we did a thing last week about bids and RFPs. And I know your background and you have some expertise, some chops in that area. So from your experience, any one or two tips you would share with the audience when they're in the kind of bid RFP world, the capture world, any top 2 or 3 things you'd want to share with folks from your perspective?
Ooh, okay. This is a loaded question because it's really dependent.
They all are. Listen, they're all loaded today. Every one of them.
We're ready. Shots fired. It's hard. I think that's probably the first thing that I want to say is we understand it can be difficult if you are going through that cumbersome standard procurement process of responding to solicitations, whether you're on the capture side, the BD side, or the proposal side. I would say that the biggest tip that I can give is just to treat proposals as an exercise in following instructions. And I'm going to get some flack for this because there are common tropes in proposal development, in writing and management that says that what you put forward to the government needs to be compliant and compelling. And that's half true. It needs to be compliant. Compelling is such a subjective turn of phrase that could mean so many things. What's compelling to you, what's compelling to me might not be compelling to the person that's reading it. So it's all about knowing your audience.
Sure.
And so just making sure that you follow the instructions as laid out in the solicitation. I like to pull back an anecdote that really shows that I was a kid that grew up in the 90s, which was there was this, I swear, every teacher in elementary school across America would do the same sort of tactic where they would give you a test and then the test would say, do not fill out the test. And that was in the instructions. But if you skipped the instructions and went right to the test taking, you'd get dinged. You failed because you didn't follow instructions.
Yeah.
That's government solicitations.
So good.
You mentioned capture. What does that mean when you said capture?
Capture is what it sounds like because in government contracting, we can't actually make up new words. We just take terms and words that already exist in English and then apply different meanings to them.
Yeah, true. Very true.
We load terminology. So capture means what it sounds like. You are trying to capture a contract. You're trying to get a contract from the government, whether it's state or local.
That's what I thought.
It's so good. It's so good. Listen, you could be just a permanent member on the GovCast if you want. Look, I love Lisa's lightheartedness. It's so how we feel about it too. It's so funny. Can you share with the audience the pulse of GovCon, right? I know you're a co-founder, and I think you have a co-founder that you worked out with. So let's start talking about that and kind of maybe how it came to be, your co-founder, and kind of what it does at a kind of granular level.
Yeah, sure thing. So Amber Hart and I started the Pulse about 4 years ago. We had worked on and off together for the last decade. I was actually her intern, despite being older than she is when I first started. So we have been working proposal management. We had been working business development and capture. And eventually we just got tired with the types of informational sources that were out there. You know, it took us a long time working in industry to really understand some of these concepts. And I think it's because of what you were talking about, Jack, where there are consultants out there, there are graybeards, whitebeards that have been in industry for 30 years, they're retired military, like they're all well and good, but they would make it so it wasn't easy to understand what it actually meant. I remember working on a proposal for an entire summer. I had no idea what it did. I didn't know what it meant to have Pashto linguists on a contract. Like, what is that? What does it mean? So we started the Pulse so that we could pull back, provide more foundational viewpoints for the concepts that we deal with every single day in our industry. So the Pulse, we offer consulting, we offer training, and we have a membership platform that has business intelligence, data aggregation, and some software components.
That's great.
Cool.
So you mentioned a couple services, right? The first one was consulting. So I guess kind of paint that picture, right? If I called you guys and said, hey, we need help with XYZ, like how would you initiate that process just for the consulting piece?
Yeah, absolutely. So as is the almost downfall of any small business, if you call and say, hey, we have this need, can you meet it? We go, of course we can. And then we're going to figure it out. So what that looks like is we'll typically talk through what avenue people want information on, whether it's a research and advisory, whether it's opportunity identification. We do pipeline vetting, we do proposal management, really anything that falls under that business development acquisition lifecycle. And so we sit down with them and we custom build SOWs and allocate levels of effort and then move forward that way.
Interesting.
Is it all federal or do you use federal, state, and local?
So I say it's all federal because that's where Amber and I, my co-founder, that's where our expertise really lies. We certainly do state, we've done state bids before. It's not our favorite because there's already so many disparate sources of information working with the federal government. When you multiply that by 50, that we don't want that headache.
We live in that headache. Yeah, we're a big data company, and we source it from all those individual little cities, counties, schools. There's not like a centralized database, so we had to create it on our own, and that's what Dre works in GovSpend every day. And I know another part is data. With the Pulse. So when you're doing a report, we firm believers in data should make decisions. And I was checking out some of your reports, and it showed I think like agencies' budgets and the companies, they always get most of that budget. Can you share a little bit of like how that data is helpful and how that can help people win government business?
Yeah, so it's funny, and I'm also glad that you said that and prefaced it in that way, because we firmly believe that, consultants and companies don't win your company business, and it's that doesn't win contracts. You win contracts, and how do you win contracts? You do that by being informed by data the best way that you possibly can. We try to provide context around data, but we also let the information speak for itself. We don't add in that sort of like superfluous your opinions or anything else in that vein. We just show you exactly what there is and let you make your own inferences. So we pull only from open source data, only from .gov informational systems, of which there are, I believe at last count, over 86 sources of .gov websites where they post forecasting opportunities.
So for the next 30 minutes, we're going to go through each of those .gov. You ready?
I'm writing it down, right? I mean,
fire.
Hang it down. And that's what's so frustrating. And so what we try to do is really pull that data and then show you, what it looks like.
Yeah, it's so good. Can we, at a granular level, so our audience, I think a vast majority of them are folks that are new to government or, because of COVID, PPE, they're like, oh, see all this money, I want to jump in. So as they think about the pulse of GovCon, can you, at a very simplistic level, walk through the different variations of how they could start working with your organization I know you mentioned there's a membership piece and a kind of consulting. So for a lay person who hears about SAM.gov and, FPDS and, have all these consultants out there, like what does the pulse say? What does your organization say? Like, we come to us because this is how we give it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say for somebody who I lovingly refer to as this being baby's first GovCon, somebody that's brand new to the government, it's not the nicest way to put it, but you're brand new, you're coming from the commercial side of the house. Things look different here. They do. It can be simplified because that's why simplified acquisition exists. But most government contracting is extremely clunky and process driven, and you need to follow instructions for instruction's sake. And that can be really difficult for people when they come into government for the first time. So I would say when it comes to working with the Pulse, free material that we have includes our articles. We have years worth of articles where we break down the basics. We do resource guides. We talked with a law firm, CoPrints, about.
We have Steve's on the show.
Yeah, I love CoPrints. And we worked with them to make a huge resource guide on what it means to team and what those teaming agreements look like and whether or not you're doing a JV or a prime and a sub and all of the different iterations. We have articles on how to find market intelligence for free and what it means. And then on the training side, we also have paid for training, but we have 8 hours of training. That's all government contracting 101. So it's GovCon 101 part 1, part 2, capture 101, and proposal management 101, where we step back and we say, what does this look like? What are you participating in? We all want to go up to a customer and just say, money, please, but that's not necessarily how it works. There's a lot of process that you need to follow. What are the steps? Where do you need to be registered? What certifications do you need? I will also say, come to us because we'll give you the reality and the facts. And I'm only saying this because one time we had a commercial firm come to us and they said, hey, I paid this lawyer to get me on a GSA schedule. And I was like, okay, sounds sus, but let's go. Let's talk about what that means. And so they ended up talking about what they had paid, which was $5,000. And then we were like, okay, do you have your GSA eBuy login information? Do you have your schedule number? Like, what information can you give us to show that you're on the schedule? They had completely misunderstood. They did not get access to a schedule. They paid $5,000 for somebody else to register them in SAM.gov as a business to do business with the government.
Oh, geez.
Which is free.
I know. I said, oh no, I don't want to tell you got ripped off, but you got ripped off.
I've done it myself. It's the first time's the toughest, but the year after year, you can just renew it. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. So it's just so unfortunate. So we like to make sure that we're a free and publicly available resource for people like that. So we can tell them, don't do that.
That's super tough. It is super tough.
So then what is your typical client? Like, are you working with a lot of people who have never sold to the government or people who have and they just need more help? Like, what does that look like?
We tend to work with established contractors, those kind of emerging mids, if you would, which is not a real like socioeconomic status, but just to put in perspective, they're small, but still kind of like have the infrastructure where they start moving to a mid-size. When I first started in consulting, especially in proposal management, I remember saying, well, I guess all of our clients would have to be small, right? Because large companies, what would they need me for? They have the people in house to do this. And it turns out they need almost as much help as anybody else. And that's another reason we started the Pulse, is because when we worked as consultants, we worked with the large system integrators and the mom and pop shops. And when it came to acquisition, the problems were ubiquitous. Everybody had the same issues. We were all trying to make sense out of a world that's nonsensical.
Yeah.
So how much does it cost for all this, right? Like if I was going to hire like a consultant, like you were saying, GSA, like 5,000, I've heard like 20,000 for consultants. So it's like, I think like a membership fee, or how does it work?
Yeah, so we have some membership fees. They're monthly. It depends on the tier that you end up joining, but we try to make it accessible to small businesses, and we also make it so that there's no long-term commitments and it's month to month, especially with the pandemic.
Right.
We knew that this was a luxury item for folks to have. Anything is like this. You want something that's going to assist you, but all this information, and this is maybe a news flash for everybody, it's all out there for free.
Yeah.
We all just take it and manipulate it and put it in different formats and sometimes add context to it.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then consulting is different consulting rates, but yeah, no, it's certainly not $20,000 to do work with us.
Yeah. I think it's so true. I think companies, it's one of the things we found is that companies are they're just blinded by whatever their first couple deals are, right? They're like, everything's on GSA, everything does this way. And you're like, nope, that's not how it works. And so it is so powerful to most companies. As you mentioned, they've won a couple deals and then they're like, hey, this is how we always think it's done. It's like, a lot of times that's not the case, right? Like just exposing them, the government buys everything and they buy it in so many different ways, and being able to share that with folks can be so enlightening, right? So as folks have won a couple deals, what's the things you work on for those mid markets? They've had some success, and then what are the things you work on at an integrated level to help get them to the next level?
Yeah, so it's all about diversifying their portfolio if that's what they come to us for. And then it's figuring out what that front of funnel is going to be. So is it going to be the size of the contract? Think of a funnel. What do you want to be captured first? Is it the size of the contract? Is it the FTEs? Is it the dollar value? Is it the agency? Or is it the NAICS PSC code, whatever your service is or your product that you're selling? You can start, and that's really all any of us do when building a pipeline or opportunity identification, is we're all just figuring out our own filtration systems. Yeah. How do we filter down in order to find the opportunities that match our company's mission and goals? Yeah. So we would definitely discuss that with them. As part of our membership offering, we have something we lovingly refer to as our Friday quick hits, which we started putting together because we wanted to show in a formulaic way all of the impactful contract actions that had happened that week. Yeah. And some people look at this newsletter and they get overwhelmed, but we are all about situational awareness because you're right. People have blinders on. They say, I work with GSA and I am only going to work with GSA or something that comes out of that. But what if, Navy is selling the exact same thing? Or what if they just awarded something over at DHS that you are currently selling to GSA? It's all about figuring that out. Now, I will say that it also depends on the type of government contractor you are, because people organize their portfolios differently. Some do it by service and some do it by agency. Fun fact, I will say by organizing your portfolios by agency does make you more attractive from an M&A component. I have heard from many M&A folks.
Yeah, that's so funny. When folks, we talked a little about GSA. Can you share with what your organization does related to GSA, right? So somebody gets either they're not, I don't know, do you help them get on GSA? And then once they're on, can you talk about that? Because again, there's this big misconception. I'll get on GSA or a state contract and then it'll just rain deals, right? So can you talk about getting on GSA and then what your organization does maybe to help actually execute deals against it?
Yeah, so let's talk about this because it's actually a real hot button of ours, because you do see, especially, it's like these sound bites that people hear where they say, I have to get a GSA schedule. And we'll typically say, why? Why do you need a GSA schedule?
Yeah.
What is a GSA schedule?
Right.
Yeah.
First and foremost, a GSA schedule is just another bucket, another .gov website where opportunities can be released. And we're talking about filtering down, right? It filters down the level of competition. If you think of sam.gov, that's everybody. That's everyone and their grandma can look at those opportunities.
Mhm.
But then to be on a GSA schedule means that you're a vendor where you have been pre-approved in terms of your costs and accounting standards, and they show that like you're a verified vendor in that way. But that doesn't mean that much because there are so many verified vendors where you're narrowing the pool of competition from like this much to like this much. It's helpful, yes, but not, it doesn't mean that you're entitled to those contracts. It just gives you access to see additional contracts coming out that might not be on sam.gov. Now, sometimes they cross promote, if you will. They have some on GSA schedules and some on sam.gov, but not often. So does our company help you get on GSA schedules? Not really. There are companies out there that are really good at that. And it's you talk about like process driven. There's almost a science to it. And so we let the people that are good at that be good at that.
Yeah.
When it comes to us, we like to help track those opportunities. We filter through. We're that filtration for folks. If they give us access to their schedules, we can find opportunities that match them. The fun thing about GSA eBuy, which is the website where GSA schedule opportunities are housed, is there are actually no permalinks to those contracts. So once your table, and this is going to be hard to explain without showing it, but something about GSA schedule contracts is there's not an archive the same way that there is on some of these other systems like FBO was or sam.gov was. So something that we also help for companies is we help to track those, because by tracking those opportunities as they come and go, it can inform you on where different agencies are spending money and on what.
Yeah. I think the GSA thing is so interesting because everyone's just, I'm on GSA. Now I'm just going to go crush it. So it's so funny.
I had a conversation with a guy yesterday, and we talked about a month ago, and he mentioned GSA. So I'm like, well, let me just talk to you about it. Like, let me just explain what you're actually signing up for. So we talked again yesterday, and it was like what is it, like Groundhog's Day? Like he was saying the same thing. He's like, well, we don't know. We've just been trying to figure it out. If we don't go on GSA, I don't think we're going to work with the government. I'm like, why?
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not the end all be all.
I would say for our audience too, getting on GSA, the analogy I would say, it's just like doing your taxes, your tax return. You can do it, right? It's just very meticulous. And there are people out there that help you do it, right? So maybe you do it on your own, maybe you hire H&R Block, right? So same thing, there are people that help you do it. It's just very meticulous, a lot of little nuances. And so you should analyze whether you feel like that fits in your core competency or somebody at your company that's very meticulous to get all the right check boxes.
Yeah, I feel like there's this misconception that if you get on a GSA schedule that the acquisition process is more simplified, but it's really not. You still have to respond to RFPs, RFQs. You still need to put together proposals and submit it. It's really just about the competition pool.
Yeah.
For sure. Hey, so can you talk a little bit, I was on your all's website, right, the different components. You got the consulting, we talked a little bit about the training, but what about the partnership program? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so that's just to say that Amber and I know that we can't do it all, and we don't pretend to. And so we have, over the course of our careers, just developed partnerships with people in the other elements of government contracting.
Okay.
Because we're very much business development, capture, proposal management. But what about legal? What about finance? We know that it takes so many different components to be successful. Recruiting is another one, right? You can be working on a proposal as a proposal manager, but if you aren't a recruiting expert and you don't know how to put together JDs and get it out there to actually staff the contract, then you're just working with, a bicycle with one wheel. That would still technically work. But, I mean, you're
But at a good balance.
So that's all that means is we've just made partnerships with folks in industry that we trust that help us on those other components on government contracting.
Yeah.
Got it.
Cool. And I know we were talking about like the GSA, but certifications, I hear that a lot too, Dre. Is like people will call and they'll be like, first I need to be registered for my minority women-owned business, and then I'm going to start selling to the government. But a lot of the relationships have to take place ahead of time. So I don't know, Lisa, like, do you come across this as all like, do you help with those type of certifications and get people registered to make them take that next step, or can they just sign up without that and you'll take it to the next level?
So no, and it depends on what it is, right? So we have a variety of socioeconomic set-asides and certifications, as it were. You
Mm-hmm.
can be 8A, you can be women-owned small business, hub zone, SDVOSB, which is service disabled, veteran owned, or just veteran owned. And all of these certification processes they're starting to be housed under the Small Business Administration, but they haven't always been. Some you could self-certify for, which is such a load of BS. I can't even stand it. Like, because people take such advantage of it. If I had a nickel for every time I worked with a company that said they were a woman-owned small business, but it's really a dude who just has the business in his wife's name and she does not actually run the company. He just wants that set aside. Then, I'd have a million nickels. I don't know. So there's that, and people definitely have taken advantage of the process. Right now for SDVOSB, they're starting to require it so that you're going to have to be CVE verified, and which I apologize, I don't remember what it stands for, but they're all these different certification processes. And again, the point is just to narrow down that competition pool. Yeah. So now for certain set-asides, the government will have, well, let's back up a little bit. Agencies will have small business goals, and they'll have that given to them at the beginning of the year. And they're not required to meet small business goals, but they're certainly encouraged to meet.
Like a guideline, like you should be doing this.
You should be like, let's be good. Let's distribute the wealth. But there's nobody saying that it's mandated. But it is a really impactful sales tactic for people that do have these socioeconomic certifications. So let's put it in perspective, right? An agency might have a hub zone small business goal, but that small business goal might only be 3% of the entire spending for the year. So it's not a huge percentage that's even encouraged. And again, though, for some of these set-asides, it just means that now, instead of being against the Lockheeds and the SAICs and the Leidoses and the big boys, now you're really only working against other people with that small business designation.
Okay.
Good, Steve. Did you have something else?
Well, yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask. I saw on the site it said like platform number 9. Like, I think it's something that's patent pending. Is that like matching up like primes and subs, or how does that work? I was curious.
Part 9, and that is our software component that the Pulse has been working on for the last couple of years. It's our interactive pipeline builder. And what it does is it scrapes information and opportunities from different sources. We have SAM.gov, grants.gov. We have all the legacy FBO.gov data in there as well. And we're about to be pulling from challenge.gov. And it pulls all that information in and then translates it against our custom logic to then push out a pipeline. And our Part 9 is all in a tabular format so that you see the data with the rows and the fields that you would typically build in an opportunity pipeline. It's all manipulatable. You can save opportunities. You have watched opportunities. You can get updates when they change. And something that's a differentiator between us and some of the other ones out there is we don't have any data limitation. So if you wanted to export the whole damn database, then, by all means, you can. And then it uploads directly into your CRM or just whatever tool that you use.
Yeah.
Okay. So not a matchmaking service then. It's
not a matchmaking, but again, a filtration service.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, because a lot of people are like, hey, now that I am, service disabled, women-owned business, I would like to, find a prime, and I could be the prime, and then I could sub it out, and that's what they're looking for. So I was just trying to figure that out.
There's definitely other matchmaking services out there. I will say that what ours does is it does filter down by those opportunities. If you are an SDVOSB and you only want to see pre-solicitation opportunities for SDVOSB under what agencies, it would filter down in that way.
Okay.
I have 2 loose ends I want to tie up. One is interesting. We mentioned partnerships a couple times. And so for those of you that are new to the government, I would just say the following. In private industry, you want to cut your competitor's throat, right? Some of that less adamant in the government world, because one of the things that's really interesting in the government world, you may be going up against somebody in a government contract, because Lisa just mentioned, hey, how do I staff it? Then let's just say your competitor wins it and they need to triple their staff. Well, guess who's the most knowledgeable of that opportunity outside of the winner's company. You know who's the next knowledgeable?
The
This
loser.
company over here, right? And so there's a lot of partnership that takes place because you may be competing against someone, but listen, you also want to walk softly because you could then be in partnership with them or wind up working with them. And there's a lot of that happens with the government, right? There's a lot of, you're kind of like frenemies or competitors or what you know, that term. Can you talk a little bit about how that it's not so cutthroat necessarily in the government world?
Yeah, so competimates are a very real thing in GovCon, and you need to. And I remember people that are new, they'll come to me and say, well, why would I want to team with somebody? Why would I want to partner with another organization? Doesn't that take away 49% of the contract from me? And the answer is yes, it does, but you also lose 100% of the contract if you lose, because it's a competitive game that we play in order to acquire these contracts. So reasons that people would team include, well, here's another just concept, a theory that's happening in federal contracting especially, is agencies are starting to consolidate contracts more and more. You very rarely see these little onesie twosie contracts for these different components. You see them being consolidated and combined into larger contracts. So maybe you can meet 25% of the requirements in the statement of work, but not the other 75. And then on the other side, maybe you can meet 75% of the requirements, but not 25. You team up so that you can go after it together. And yeah, of course, you have to give away some work share, but it's better to win 51% of a contract than 0.
Yeah. And you have a much wider network when you start to integrate and get to know other companies, you know, and compete on kind of a friendly basis. It lets you also see the things they're going after and typically can be very synergistic. So I just wanted to share that as folks, you know, look at the government market. It's a little different than private from a competition standpoint. And then the other loose end I had was, I know you mentioned it once or twice, there are a ton of kind of .gov, free stuff, different places to go for data. It's both great, but there's actually too many, right? Folks are like, they miss some and they don't. So can you just share your perspective on the data sets that are out there, all the .govs, how you think about it, how you direct people, what the Pulse does in relation to that to kind of help folks get through it in a way that's more efficient?
Absolutely. So my feelings on it is that it's a bleeping problem. And I did not know if I was allowed to curse on this or not, but I was
right. We've definitely had some cursors.
I was right there. It's a problem, and it's a problem that we've actually discussed on an advocacy level and with federal employees that are in charge of some of these systems, and they don't necessarily see it as a problem the way that we do. I remember bringing this up. Bringing up how sometimes the data is, most often the data is clunky or inaccurate, and it makes it so that we're, as government contractors, not empowered by which to better go after federal business. And they said, well, this data isn't for you. And I was aghast. And I said, if not for me, then who? And the sad reality is that it's all about just federal and legislative compliance, and less so about actually informing decisions that have to do with working with the federal government. So my answer to that is it's a problem. And my other answer is it's very hard not to miss something. So that's why you need to be as situationally aware as humanly possible. So the Pulse, we have newsletters that we put out every Friday that is like this huge aggregate list of contract actions and events that have happened that week. That's certainly a way that we help. We also, for our members, do specialized reports. So we just went through the FY22 presidential and agency budgets and did a comparison between both of them to see what agencies are going to receive what funding. And why would you need to know that? Because if they're your customer and their funding is lacking or their funding isn't being allocated to the services or the products that you sell, then you might not do that much work with that agency that year. And so just really what we try to do is just aggregate as much data as possible and present it in a formulaic and bite-sized manner so that you can understand it.
Yeah.
That's good. So I know the government buys everything. We say from paper clips to battleships, right? It rhymes at the end.
Does it rhyme?
The IPS. IPS. That's what I said. So I'd like to ask you a fun question, Lisa. You worked with so many different businesses, right? The ink toner companies, right, to the staffing companies. But what one sticks out like this is the most unique company that you've helped, like a fun one that you're like, oh, I can't believe it. The government, because government buys everything that you help be successful.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Oh, because it's so varied, right?
Such a
I
good
know.
Steve question. Such a
Yeah. Man, we've worked on like bomb proposals, and then
Okay.
we've also worked on janitorial services proposals, and really everything in between. I really like the companies that do sort of like, oh, that's okay. So there's this one right now on company and business transformation, which I do think is really interesting. I didn't realize how much sort of metaphysicalness there was to this concept of how to transform organizations. Because I was like, oh, you transform, you change it. But really, there's all of these methodologies that you follow. It's very much about the human psyche. It's about, psychology and sitting back and saying, how do people think? How do we interact with each other? And that's what a lot of the big consulting companies, consulting with a big C, say and that they do. And I do think it's really interesting, that sort of service that they provide.
Oh yeah, I deal with one lady. It's like just studying body language when you're like interviewing someone, you're talking to them, and she said this is a very important skill. Like definitely for like FBI negotiators, right? In that realm, but she's like for everybody in the office. So that's her program, and I was like, that's cool.
I love that. Nonverbal communication is so important. I'm also an orals coach. So in terms of the business development acquisition lifecycle, after proposal, sometimes, as you know, they will request you to do an orals presentation. And there's a whole subsect of coaching for that because it's theater, darling. It's theater. It's not just you stand up and do a presentation. You have practiced asking somebody else that's presenting with you a question and then acting like it's natural. It's fascinating. I love it.
So I had a question. So just listening to you speak, because I had never heard of your company, admittedly, right? And so I think it's just super interesting. Like I talk to different vendors all the time who, some large, some small, some federal, some state and local, but it made me really think that I want to go through after this and just figure out who could use you, because I feel like so many companies could. I'm curious though, because you guys do provide so many types of services. Like how many companies do you work with today?
So today, well, it depends on any given day. So we do our engagements kind of ad hoc versus long term. So it's more project to project. I would say that in terms of consulting, we've had upwards of 35 in the last 2 years.
Cool.
And then for our membership, since it's mostly automated and it's online, upwards of 60, 70.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So can you, so Lisa, as we get near the end, can you tell folks both how to get a hold of the Pulse, where they go, and then how to get a hold of you directly and or Amber?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is thepulsegovcon.com. There is a contact form where you can be connected right to our admin email, and we will get back to you. As far as me, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and Twitter, especially when I'm trying to distract myself from other work that I have. So feel free to connect with me there and DM me, and same for Amber.
That's great. Oh, I was going to say, is the production crew going to be able to pop that up? That's great. That's so good. Look, there it is. All the things below. That's awesome. Again, I've heard nothing but great things about the Pulse of GovCon, and so super excited. How long has it been around, by the way?
Almost 4 years. I would say when we first started, we actually started anonymously, believe it or not. We were anonymous for an entire year.
Wow.
It was very fun to start a brand with no names.
Top secret, right?
It was top secret. We had people sign NDAs if they ever wanted to get on the phone with us. Don't tell who we are. The fallout after people found out that it was just two young women was not great. But we built back up from there.
It's so good. It's like the FBI, like behind the CIA of government contracting. Any last thoughts, feedbacks, advice for folks that you've experienced? Anything from the Pulse that you would share with our audience as they think about doing business, particularly with the federal government? Any last tidbit, nugget of gold that you would be like, "Ooh, here's one of the things that would help most folks out there as they consider jumping into this pool"?
Yeah, I would just say, and I say this every time I get invited to speak anywhere, is just beware of sensational rhetoric when it comes to working with the government. And by that, I mean any sort of headlines, and you see it all the time on some of these industry publications, whom I love and we work with all the time. I get that it's clickbait, you need to get people's attention, but just take it with a grain of salt. Do your own research when you can. Ask people that you trust questions to make sure that you're on the right track. And also don't believe that there's only one right way to do this.
Oh, amen to that last piece. So true. Like everyone's like, this is how it works. And it's like, no, listen, there's a whole nother world out there. That's great. All right. Thank you. It's Lisa Shea Mundt. Thank you so much for joining us today. Love your energy. Love your feedback. Congratulations. Best of luck with the Pulse of GovCon. Continued success to you and Amber. God bless.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's literally love her energy and knowledge. What they're doing is amazing. I think it's so great. Them just being really open about, hey, there's a ton of information and so much about consultants in the government space is, hey, just taking, there's actually too many, you know what I mean? There's so many kind of free or government or sources of data out there. That's what makes all the aggregation so important, like what we do and what the Pulse is doing, just trying to make it more simple for folks. It's huge, right? So any other thoughts y'all have? Yeah.
Before like the pre-show, like make sure like a fifth grader could understand it. Like when you're talking with it, like everybody wants to make it seem more complicated than it is. And then it's like, well, this is what this word means. There was an episode, what was I watching? I want to ask her that. It was so funny. It was like called The Shred. I don't think she's doing it anymore, but you can still find the videos online. And it was the mistakes people make when talking about government vernacular.
All the words.
And like RFP and RFQ. And they just keep throwing these things around. Like, you can make it more common, but request for proposal. It's like you send in a proposal. That's what that means. It's like
this is our best look. This is our best guess from they didn't confuse the audience, right? Normally, right. Anytime we have a government sales expert in, there's 98 acronyms during just their conversation. You know what I mean? And so I think we were less than a dozen today. So I think it's a new record for us in the gov space.
It's good.
So Dre, any last thoughts from your end with your guns and now that you're vaccinated and feeling great?
Well, it's gun singular. Thank you. But no, I thought it was good. I mean, I talked to, like I said, right, companies that have sold to the government, some that have not, and some that could definitely use her. So that was interesting.
Yeah, just encourage folks. Reach out to the Pulse of GovCon. They're doing great things. As you can see, super lighthearted. And so great resource for folks that are trying to sell to the government. Great segue, by the way. Next month, this is what we're going to focus on. As most of you know, we do a workshop or a webinar every single month. And so when we go into September, literally, we're going to talk about stuff like the Pulse of GovCon, which is like, hey, there's so many resources, so many IT sources out there. And so next month's webinar workshop, we're actually going to talk about, hey, what is it, on the 15th? Yeah, on the 15th at noon, we're actually going to go over, hey, here are a bunch of resources that are out there. Here are some IT systems you may want to invest in. So it's kind of like a resource, the Pulse of GovCon being one of them, right? Hey, what are the things out there? And then you as a business owner can kind of go through them and filter through them and be like, hey, this is more applicable to us. Some folks need a consultant that helps them, as we mentioned, like get on GSA or maybe a proposal writer to help them do proposals. Some folks need like a bid notification system to help them go through stuff, right? There's a ton. If the government spends $7 trillion, there's a ton of folks that support that and make it happen. And so next month on the 15th, we'll actually dive into that, give folks some lists and some functionality that'll help them be better. And then again, you can kind of pick and choose which ones work for you. And some are super cheap, some are free. The government, as we just talked about, a ton of free. Some are cheap, some are more high end. And in that world, I always say my last thing, and now Steve, you want to give folks it's like cars. You kind of get what you pay for. You can buy a Lamborghini, or you can buy a smart car. You kind of get what you pay for, right?
Yeah, good analogy. Good thing you didn't say coffin car. I think you used that door.
I did that last week. I did mix in the coffin car, which I meant the smart car.
Not good.
No. Got to bring it up again. Sorry, Jack. But yeah, going back to like her analogy, I think or not even analogy, it was like a true story of like paying a lawyer $5,000 and the person thought they were getting on the GSA schedule and they were just getting registered for sam.gov. So that is why we're trying to help steer you in the right direction here, because if you're going to be trying to invest money in your business and in yourself, we want to make sure we're steering you in the right direction. So we talk with, hundreds of companies like, the Pulse and, more sites out there. We just don't want to be biased just to GovSpend, which is a great source because we're the only ones that have purchase order data on a state, local, and education level, because there's also sources out there on the federal level that are some free and some paid. So join us 15th, same day. We always do it Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern time, and we'll share some fun facts with y'all.
What's another great resource that's out there, Steve? What's another resource?
I think GovSales University is a great resource, Jack. I know you're going to plug it in there, but yeah, people trying to get their feet wet and they're into the game. It's like a step-by-step. We even include a playbook now. It's over 60 pages. We're including it absolutely free. We're giving away free. We could charge, hundreds of dollars for this playbook, we want you to actually retain the knowledge, because watching videos is great. You can go through the workbook and actually take like, all right, here's the question, here's the answer. And we found a lot of people will remember it, and then you'll have that for the rest of your life. You can always go back to that workbook. Even if you cancel GSU and you can't get back to the videos, that workbook will live in your drawer somewhere. Like, remember last year I was learning that? You can pull it out and get those fun facts and apply it to your business.
Wow, look at you. Look at GSU growing by leaps and bounds.
Oh, I'm so excited about this workbook. Can you tell? We got to start promoting it. It's not even released yet.
So good.
Voice got real high right there. He's excited.
Yeah, he's all fired up. He's like, forget these videos. I got this new book I'm putting out.
You should see this thing.
So listen, just encourage everybody, reach out to the Pulse of GovCon, Lisa Shea Mundt, our partner, Amber Hart. They're doing great things. Until next week, we'll see you next Wednesday. Hopefully Dre will be here. It'll be December. What is it?
Try the macchiato.
Go get a Starbucks. Go get a Starbucks. We'll be back September 1st. The summer's over.